Hey guys, Mr. Calderon with Queen May Pawn. And today I'll be answering a question that a reader of my blog post sent me. And his name is FRM Endless Lines. So it's going to be about chess. Hello, good evening. Sorry to disturb you at this time of night, but I just entered the chess study group. And that's great that you entered the chess study group, because if you're hanging out with like-minded people, your chess will definitely improve. Like, I just came back from a tournament, a blitz tournament, this past Thursday, and even though it was just blitz, the level of those players was so high that I played online for the next 2 days and my rating shot up by 100 points. Like, you can even check the charts, Mr. Calderon in leadchess.org. Or if you're more of a visual person, yeah, just look at the graphs. Okay, it says, I've been playing chess for at least 1 year, and I would like to know how to progress. Well, lots of people think that just by playing lots of chess that they'll improve, but you also have to do tactics. So leadchess.org has a lot of tactics, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm over here and I go to my puzzles, and I could do this puzzle, which is a random puzzle, or I could go to puzzle themes, and they have a lot of tactics. And what I recommend for every beginner, intermediate, and even advanced player, I recommend that they do forks, pins, and then sacrifices. Forks, pins, and sacrifices. Forks are the most common tactic. They occur in almost every game or a threat of it. Pins are not as common, but they are up there. They're like the second. So they're not as common as forks, but if you put a pin on a piece, then that piece can't move, and you basically took away one piece until they unpin themselves. So it's like, hey, you lose a turn, right? And then sacrifices. Sacrifices are what get you winning games. If you know how to sacrifice, you can break into their position, get them nervous, and they will have to know how to defend the position. And sometimes the sacrifice is so strong that there can't be any defense. So that's that, but I have more to say. He continues, what books to read to start improving and doing chess? Okay, so tactics, as I've already discussed, are what you need to do, but books about endings. Okay, so there's Basic Chess Endings by Ruben Fine, which every beginner should read. And you might find the exercise or the examples a little bit difficult, but once you solve the example, you'll feel so good inside. I still remember how good I feel when I read the examples and I see the whole thing in my head, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And make sure that don't play out the moves on a board. Like, I have my board here and I'll study with the pieces, but I won't move the pieces while I'm doing a tactic or an exercise. I have to see the whole thing in my head first. And only then, after I've seen everything for at least 10 minutes, or if it's easy, then 5 minutes, then you're able to move the pieces. So don't move the pieces. And get books about endings, like this book by Smyslov, Rook Endings. This is a great book. Smyslov was a grandmaster and also a world chess champion. Okay, so when you're really advanced, the tactics and endgames are part of your technique. You now have to move on to a strategy book. And I would suggest My System by Nimzo, which I suggested to my students. And my students bring up points all the time about, oh, should I do this and that? Is this the right strategy? Is this pin important? Well, My System answers all those questions, and you'll find out if that's a good idea to do. All right, so he continues. Many times I find that in the games, I manage to have an advantage over my opponent, but due to lack of concepts, I waste a lot of time thinking about the move. Right, so it's all about checks, captures, and threats. Okay, so I'm so experienced in checks, captures, and threats that every single move, I look for all the checks, all the captures, and the threats. And as time goes on, you're gonna start narrowing down like what are the more important checks, captures, and threats. So I would highly suggest doing slower games so that you have time to look at all the checks, all the captures, and all the threats in every single move. Especially when there's an exposed king or there's loose pieces. I hope you're taking notes because I'm mentioning like a lot of concepts and like we only remember like 10% of what we listen to. So you might have to rewatch the video. So make sure to do that. Checks, captures, and threats. What about different patterns of checkmate? Yeah, you need to do checkmate patterns. Like there's this page on Wikipedia and I'll share the screen right now. It's checkmate patterns. Okay, so you put that in Google, right? And you click on checkmate patterns on Wikipedia. And these are all the patterns that you should know. I know all of these by heart. You ask me the name and I tell you the position. And you can see that it has diagrams. So you can even read the history about it, like the opera mate. Everyone needs to know the opera mate. It's from the most famous game ever played in chess. And it was played in an opera. Look at that. So it's what else? I waste a lot of time thinking about when I should know to save time. Yeah, like I said, checks, captures, and threats. Okay, so thanks a lot. Okay, yeah, so those are all the tips that I have to offer. You might have to rewatch the video, but it's okay because you will learn a lot just by following these concepts that I mentioned. And you'll be able to hit a high rating. Like when I started playing chess, I was like a 1400. And then 3 years later, I made 3 years later, no, I don't remember, but I eventually got to 1800 in a couple of years. Let's say that a couple of years, you can get to 1800. And you know, that's 200 points per year. That's pretty good. It's better than 0 points per year. So that's all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like the video. If you're not subscribed already, make sure to subscribe and comment if you have any more questions, and I'll see you on the next one.